back, everyone. Region 12. Welcome to everybody who's joining us today, whether if you were with us for our morning class with Therese Antonini, or if you are just now joining us. So happy to see all of you. Thank you for being here with us today for part 2 of our Fall AIM weekend. Just a few little housekeeping items. Once again, just some reminders. If you do have any questions during the class session, anything that you would like to ask Therese, or anything that you would like to say, please put your question into the Q&A box. There is also the Zoom chat as well, and that's kind of more for fun comments that we may have with one another. So just reminders on that end. If we do have time during the class where Therese would like someone to raise their hand to share something, that function, the raise hand function, is down at the bottom underneath participants. If you click on participants, you should see that option, that function on there. So just those reminders, and make sure if you are putting something into the Zoom chat, if you're wanting to say something to the other attendees, that you do put that in the area that you put panelists and attendees as well. So there's a couple of different options there. So anyway, those are those reminders. I would love to reintroduce Therese Antonini. She is our current president-elect on the International Board of Directors for Sweet Adelines. She has been singing bass with Sweet Adelines for her almost 30-year membership in the organization. She did say that she has sang baritone a couple of times in a few quartets, but other than that, she has been a bass, which is wonderful. So we're so excited that she is here with us. This is her last class for Fall AIM, and we've just enjoyed her time here with us tremendously. So this is her class, The Care and Feeding of Leadership. So take it away, Therese.
Thank you again, Allison, for that great introduction. I could see a little bit of bass bias there, but I can live with that. So that's great. I do want to say just a little bit about this class before we start, because even though it's the care and feeding of leadership, it applies to everybody. So, you know, I wanted to finish the weekend with something talking about looking after ourselves and looking after each other. And so that's sort of the goal of this particular one, and I'm going to share my screen once again. Now, I do want to show you that somebody found my the Scotty's image that I wanted to share in the last class. So for those of you who weren't in the last class, we were talking about how sometimes we can misinterpret what the expressions that people have on their faces. So in this case, is it that her son moves away, or is that her son moves home? So I mentioned this in my last class and someone found it for me. So I wanted to bring that up, and thank you to that person who found it for me. All right, so let's talk about the care and feeding of leadership, or really of each other, is what this is really about. So, and if I asked you to name all the things that you love, how long would it take for you to name yourself? So often we forget that really, oh, somebody speaking? We forget that really, unless we have that ability to love ourselves, you know, that it's more difficult to love others out of another space. So just take that time to recognize that you have great things about yourself that's worth loving, and buy yourself a box of chocolates on Valentine's Day. First, take care of you. So remember this one from when we used to fly? Put on your oxygen mask first and then help others. So just that whole idea of make sure that you have taken care of what you need to in order to help others. Your energy is precious. Spend it wisely. So we've got this energy. Let's make sure that we're putting it where it's going to best serve us, rather than spending it on things that are not beneficial to us or to others. Make sure that your energy is spent wisely. Okay. Find your best way to replenish it. So find the ways that feed your energy, whatever it takes to feed your energy. So For me, I love to do origami. I love to play with Legos. Those things feed my energy. So those are things I take some time to do, even though they might seem trivial to others. Okay. And if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. We talked, about this while we were talking about in our conflict management session, that idea of, making sure that you're not crossing your core values. There's nothing that will sap your energy faster than doing things that you don't believe in. It can be very damaging to you as an individual. So, okay. So I'd like to start with a little bit of discussion, and you can just put this in the Q&A box for me. I'd just like people to describe things that are an energy drain for you, or describe things that are powerful energy sources for you. We'll share these ideas, and there may be some things that I think, oh, I'd like to try that, or just recognizing that what could be an energy source for you might be an energy drain for somebody else. So just type those into the Q&A box, and Allison will read them as they come up. We'll give a couple of seconds to get our first one. And this can be in your Sweet Adeline's life or in your regular life, just anything that feeds or depletes your energy. It's very important to recognize these for ourselves.
We have our first comment in our Q&A, an energy source, this is from Pamela, energy source is laughter.
Oh. Excellent. And in fact, laughter is one of those things like singing that actually affects those neurotransmitters in the brain and lifts us up, right? It gets those feel-good hormones and neurotransmitters going. So that makes complete sense. Medicine, right?
Yes, our next one is, Linda says, a drain is when people around me aren't positive. Also when people don't use common sense.
Yeah, which, as we've discovered, is not that common, right? Common sense is unfortunately not that common. I want to speak about that, the power of negativity, and I think we did speak a little bit about this, but again, because of the way the brain deals with that, negativity is a threat. It perceives that as a threat. That's why we call it negativity, that's how we frame it. It spends more energy on it. It recognizes it faster. It remembers it more. You have to be very guarded against. You have to be very aware of that idea of protecting yourself from that drain of negative energy. And so I think I also shared, I heard an analogy once of, one negative person is like a drop of milk in a glass of water, a clear glass of water. And when you think about that, how much more water is it going to take to make that clear again? So it's that idea of whatever we can do to keep that milk from dropping in there, if we can somehow you protect that glass of water, that's the idea of, because it actually is scientific. It is a drain on energy. So very good. Yeah, that's a big one. Okay, any more, Allison?
Yes, we've had more come through. Bonnie says negative attitudes or apathy. Pamela says an energy drain is Zoom meetings.
Oh.
Probably maybe too many Zoom meetings. Another drain that Diana says is negative attitudes.
Mm-hmm.
Evelyn says a feed is doing things for and with others.
Excellent. Yeah, again, we mentioned this morning that, for people who are dealing with depression, volunteerism is one of the things that they recommend because it lifts you up. So, yeah, great.
Mary says an energy drain for her is people who whine and won't let something go, won't let it go. And an energy source for her is accomplishing a task that was new to her, new to her.
Wonderful.
A source of energy for someone is asking questions, learning, being engaged in a conversation with others.
Excellent.
Cindy says an energy drain for her is whiny, constantly negative people.
What does she mean? I know whining for me is
Yes. There's a lot more. These are great. Eileen says taking time to enjoy our beautiful world.
Oh, wonderful.
Cindy,
nature has so much to give us, I mean, literally the trees give us energy. So that's beautiful.
Cindy says another energy booster for her is laughing and singing with friends. Oh, that's so true.
Yeah, we can all appreciate that one.
Susan says negativity is an energy drain. Um, Diana says a source of energy is classical music.
Ah, wonderful.
Someone else says an energy drain, being too busy, facing deadlines, feeling out of control or flustered.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is excellent. That out
Uh,
of control thing is, it can sap you really quickly. Yeah, great. These are great.
Tammy says an energy drain, going through writing policies and rewriting standing rules. But an energy source is doing this task with others that know the importance of making the time to get that job done.
That's excellent. That's really good. And what I find really interesting about that is for some people, that's a source of energy, is, getting into documents and looking at every word. So that's an excellent example of where something that's an energy drain for one person is an energy source for another. Great example.
And then Sherry says an energy source for her is her faith, which is
Ah, wonderful.
great.
That's wonderful.
Dar says an energy drain for her is our technical glitches, which, yes, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And in the chat, we have a few more. Kathy says an energy source for her is other people's laughter.
Mm.
And then an energy drain is dishonesty.
Ah, yeah. Just saps you when you find out that someone's been dishonest. These are great. So when we think about that, then let's find the time, find the space to bring those powerful energy sources into our life. And let's find a way to minimize those things that drain our energy. So if that idea of the protection from the negative energy source, if you can find a way to help yourself. One of the big things for me is that recognition of, this is not mine. Your negative approach to something, your negative thoughts about something, your whining, whatever that is, that does not belong to me. That's a choice that you're making. So that has really helped me in managing my own protection from negative energy. So something to think about. All right.
We have a
Go
like
ahead.
a few
Yeah,
more.
yep.
Patty wrote in the chat box, a source of energy for her is during this current Zoom time, watching fun videos of people having fun singing or imagining what our song could be, and then how much energy and feeling a song could have, and creating excitement to learn a new song. So that's all a source of energy for her.
Beautiful.
And then Bonnie wrote, another energy source for her is doing something new.
Doing something new, yeah, and yet for other people, that's an again, it can be very scary, or it's not something, depending on their personality type. So it's another great example of this feeds me, and for other people it might. It just goes to show you how personal that is. These are great examples. Thanks everybody for sharing.
I think I got everyone.
Okay, great. Now take care of them. So we've taken care of ourselves. We made sure we're healthy, that we're in good psychological health, good physical health, those type of things, take care of ourselves. Now we can start to take care of others. So let's talk about that. So communicate, right? This is a big one, what we hear more and more. So what do you admire about me? These are questions that you can, if you feed people with these ideas, then you're giving them, helping take care of them, okay? What did I do great? Tell me about something I did great. A lot of times we kind of don't say something. We believe this, we believe a person did a great job, but we don't communicate it. So take that opportunity to say, wow, it was a beautiful presentation you did for the chorus. Give specifics about what you loved about it. Okay, why do you value me? Why am I important in your life? Communicate that to people. Where do I stand with you? Right? What is our relationship about? How can I improve? These are all ways that we can feed other people and take care of them. And then what do you need from me? So again, it's that reciprocity. The most important part about this, if we're communicating to others, is authenticity. So don't say something if you don't mean it, right? It's that whole thing. If you can't say something nice, sit next to me. No, if you can't say something nice, don't say it at all, is what the saying is, right? So make sure it comes from a place of authenticity. It's the most important thing. Again, our brains can pick up on that without any conscious awareness. They will pick up on the physical signs of inauthenticity in particular. Okay. So communicate, communicate, communicate. You can't do it too much. All right. If there's anybody who can share a moment where someone said something that made you feel valued and supported. Okay, so we could raise hands for this one. I'd like to hear this if we can. Anybody? All right, Cindy. Cindy, can you share a moment that somebody said something that made you feel valued? And
Yes, I recently became membership and was kind of worried about filling the big shoes of the person I was taking over for. And my director said, "You're not filling her shoes, you're wearing your own shoes and you'll do a beautiful job." And that just relaxed me and I felt fine. That's all she needed to say.
wow,
Yeah,
what a beautiful way of communicating
yeah,
that.
she's pretty fantastic.
Who's your director?
Dee Dee Nibbler. Yeah,
That is really beautiful. What a beautiful way of expressing that. Thank
yeah,
you for sharing that, Cindy.
sure.
Anybody else? All right, Laura. Hi, Laura.
Mhm. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. So actually, Thursday night at our rehearsal, we had a coaching session with Jan Carley, and she did power circles with us, where we were in a small group with 3 other people, and we took turns saying what we value about ourselves, and then having people say what they value about us, which was really powerful to both have to say what we think about ourselves and then also have that affirmed and valued, and additional things said about you. So it was a wonderful opportunity to do that.
It's such a great exercise because I've always said, if someone says something about you, if they value about you or they admire about you, you can't dispute it because for them, that is a truth. And so you have to accept it. As my dad would say, just say thank you. Because it is the truth for them. That is how they experience you. So that is a wonderful exercise to just what's the word I'm thinking of? To show this, demonstrate this exact thing. Let's hear one more. If we could get one more person to share. Sometimes it's hard to do this because
I think we have a couple that are in the chat.
okay.
Allison?
We do. We do.
Sure.
Dar shared in the Q&A, she said, as I am an elder, a young member said I was her role model.
Wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really, it just lets you know, sometimes we don't even realize the value we have to another. That's really, really special to have that happen.
And then Nina wrote in the chat, she said, I got flowers delivered to my house by a chorus member for recognition of how much she appreciated what I did for the chorus.
Yeah, that is excellent. Those expression, I love that because they'd had an action to it, but there was something specific. You do so much for us, right? That idea. Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing that. So,
oh, we have one more.
okay.
Tammy just wrote in the chat, my director says I am the best team leader she has ever had.
Awesome. Awesome. So what I would say too is think about that for yourself, how that made you feel. And again, about sharing that with others, just saying something, you know what I really value about you, or you know what I really like about you, or you know what I really appreciate about you, and then give them a specific example. It makes a big difference in people's lives. Although we don't always get, we don't always want to be looking for external validation, sincere expression of value is something that can be very encouraging to us. So let us continue. So delegation, I want to talk about delegation because delegation kind of brings a lot of what we've been speaking about all in all of my classes, right? From establishing trust, communicating clearly, those type of things. So I want to talk about delegation, the different levels of it, what it means, and what value it can add, especially to the relationships within Sweet Adelines in particular. Okay, so why do we delegate? What are some reasons for delegating? I'm going to enter your ideas in the Q&A. I'm going to put up a few while you're doing that. So we might do it to manage our workload, promotes true leadership. So we're building leaders by giving them more and more responsibility. It will help us with succession planning, build experience and confidence as people do more and more work, identifies the strengths and weaknesses of people to themselves as well as to others. So we start to build, recognize whose skills are best put to work for specific tasks. And it builds responsibility and accountability. I was teaching in Region 8 and somebody said, involvement is investment. That idea of when you have something to contribute to the course, when you're important to the course, you're invested. So you have ownership in the course, you matter to the course. Did we get any other comments in the box, Allison?
Yes, we did. We have several. Someone wrote in the chat room, it teaches others how to do the job and prepare them for a leadership role.
Excellent.
Randy says it increases bench strength.
Yep. That's a bit of that succession planning happening. Yep.
And then the Q&A, more hands. Bonnie says more hands and ideas makes for better outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Eileen says someone is more experienced, skilled in an area. Kathy says delegation allows others to feel a part of the community and team, and it trains them and shows them that that you value their contributions. Tammy says get the work done so we can have fun after the work is done.
I love that one.
Yeah. And then Julie says, as a director, it's a demonstration of my belief in the member.
That is so excellent. Yeah. It really does build that relationship and trust and all of those things that are so helpful as we move forward. So let me ask you, why not? Why don't we delegate? Sometimes we struggle with delegation. So again, I'm going to put up a few things that, a few of my ideas. If you want to do something right, do it yourself. There's that idea. I'm not sure I can trust someone else to do it. It takes less time to do it myself. This one we often come up with. I'm not sure I know how to delegate. I really like doing it myself, so I want to keep it for myself. And it might not be good enough if I delegate it. So any thoughts around these or any other reasons why we might not delegate? What keeps us from delegating?
Linda says, don't know how to train someone else. So not necessarily
that's
knowing how to train someone.
That's a great one.
Let's see. Oh, it's often hard to articulate the task.
To manage those expectations. And that's very good.
And Joanne wrote, need for control or lack of trust. We may not have a broad enough understanding of other skills. So there's those hidden talents that we don't necessarily know about.
Right.
Oh, this is good as well. Not having the time to train someone else.
Right. Yeah. That whole idea of I just go ahead and do it.
Afraid to ask for help. And I don't know, someone wrote, I don't like how I feel if someone turns me down when I ask them to do something, and then I don't know who else to ask.
That's very good. Yeah. That idea of when you ask, really, you do make yourself vulnerable a little bit, don't you? To have someone say, no, I don't want to do this. That's a great point. Yeah, these are all barriers, and they can keep us from doing that. So I want to talk now about the steps of delegation. And some of these came up and why we don't. So this will be really good.
Can I
So the
share,
first one, oh, go ahead.
Grace, can I
Yes.
share two more real quick that
Yes,
came through?
absolutely.
If Susan wrote, I could do it faster by myself, and it would risk having the task done less than desired.
Yeah.
And then Kathy says, I've been guilty of all of these in the past, but I hope and believe I have learned better behavior. I've learned to trust people much more, and the results have been amazing. Letting go has been so good for me and for them. Everyone steps up.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. You know, coming from the place of, I used to have these concerns when I took the risk. We talked about this in our abundance thinking. I found out that, in fact, people do rise to the occasion. That was excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's talk about the steps of delegation. So the first one is, and we talked about this, defining what needs to be done. So having that very clear definition of what needs to be done before we delegate it. So, you know, this can depend on the level of delegation, but still you want to make sure we know what needs to be done. So we need to know the outcome. We need to know what the scope of it is, how much do you want done, that type of thing. Define the skills or gifts required. So in other words, we now have this task. What resources, skills, and gifts does the person who takes on this role need to have? Or the people, you might have a group of people depending on how big a step it is, or how big a job it is. So we need to define what needs to be done, define what it takes to do it, and then we can identify the who. So this is where that idea of the hidden talents, it's great if you can do a chorus survey to find out the skills that are in your chorus. Sometimes we find out things through other ways. You know, little games can do that, tell us things that you've done, and you can find different ways to do that. But in order to find out who will do it, we need to know what needs to be done, and we need to know what they need to be able to do. So we're going to identify the person or group who will do it. Setting expectations. So this is a big one, right? To say, here's the expectation. And this can have to do with the scope of it. How big is it? What time, the timing involved. It could have to do with reporting expectations. Do I expect, you know, an email update once a week? Or do I, you know, if it's a long-term one, it might be a report once a month, those type of things. But setting up all the expectations around what this delegation looks like so that both parties can then commit to that, to those expectations. So we're going to agree to the commitments. So it's important that they're done in this order. We build up from the bottom to get us to the point of a full step of delegation. Let me know if there are any questions, Allison. So all of them are important. You know, how are you going to set expectations if you don't know what needs to be done? How are you going to identify who will do it if we don't know what it's going to take to do it? All of those things, they all feed into the step above it. And how can we agree to commitments if we haven't set expectations? That whole type of thing. So it's a very specific step to get us to a likelihood of success for the delegation. Any questions about the 5 steps of delegation? Okay, we will move on. Now we're going to talk about each of them. So defining what needs to be done. How big is it? What's the volume of work and how important is it? When does it have to be done? And is it an established task or a new one? So are we having to define a new task, or is this something that's already established? So if we have something like we talked about, taking attendance, we have, you know, a spreadsheet that we keep updated, something like that, that's an established task, or is it something brand new? You're going to look for a different set of skills based on the answers to those questions. Okay. Our next one is define the skills or gifts required. So what skills or gifts are necessary? What is it going to take to get this job done? How well developed do they have to be? So we need somebody who knows, you know, who has technical skills, but do they need extensive technical skills, or do they need to know how to add 2 cells in Excel. So that idea of how well developed do these skills need to be? And then do they need training, guidance, or mentorship to help them achieve, successfully achieve that task? Okay. So again, if it's a big high-risk task, you probably want someone who's got those talents and gifts are already established. If it's something where it's actually a learning type of task, then you maybe want one where there's training, guidance, or mentorship available to help that person along. So identify who will do it. Again, we're going to look at those skills and gifts, and we're going to say who has these gifts and skills that we have seen demonstrated. Or, if they do it in their work life, then that's a proven skill. Who has potential skills and gifts. So if we're willing to make this a learning task, who are the people with potential to grow into the ability? And that what kind of orientation or training is needed. So even if you have someone extremely skilled, you might need to have an orientation for that task. Okay, so I think of, for example, with our task force chairs at the international level, we tend to pick people with a lot of experience, but we still have an orientation process that walks them through the task force structure and processes. So.
Therese, we have a couple of a few questions that have come through on the Q&A. Susan is asking, what do you do if no one is willing to volunteer?
Yeah, so if no one volunteers to a general request, I would usually ask a specific person. I have found that asking someone specifically the answer is more likely to be yes than if we do a general sort of, I need a volunteer to do this thing. If you really do get down to you need something done and no one volunteered to do it, then you can start talking about maybe forming a team, partnering people so that they can work on it together. But then you need to, it needs to be more specific than as I say, I find a specific invitation to a specific person is more effective than a general invitation. So something to think about that approach. And then if you are having problems getting volunteers, think about breaking the task down to smaller pieces and, getting more people involved to cover the task. Great question. Thank you.
And then Tammy someone else had more of a comment. She says, I find when I match up the person's strengths, the job will always get done. It may not be done the way I would have done it. My takeaway is they may not know how to do the exact job, but I always learn more about the person. And I also learn new ways of doing the job.
Yeah, that's wonderful. There's an openness there to me to say that I have a way to do the job effectively, but there could be other ways to do it effectively. So my way is not the only way, and letting go of that, being able to say, I can accept that. That's, again, a sign of very good self-awareness and openness as well. So that is excellent. And that idea of learning, the best way to learn what people are capable of is to give them the opportunity to do it. Now we're going to talk about levels of delegation that help inform that in the next little session. So.
And then we had one more comment. Joanne says, I ask for a volunteer and then stand there silently until someone raises their hand.
I'm going to remember that the next time I ask for people to ask questions or to be involved, which has been working well. So yeah, it's making that little bit of somebody put your it's kind of a peer pressure type tactic. Hey, if it works, I'm out.
We have one more comment that came through on the Q&A. Some people are fearful of not knowing how to do something. Make sure job descriptions are current and provide training, which I think that's a very, very good idea.
It's a really good one. And it's another way of approaching that. I can't find a volunteer. That idea of, hey, we'll help you get this done. We'll give you training. We'll have someone mentor you, and to take that fear away of, I don't want to fail. I don't want to let the chorus down, or whatever the case may be. So that is a really good tactic to make sure they know that training and support is going to be available. Very good. Okay, so then we move on to set expectations. Is the required outcome clear to everyone? So does everybody understand what we expect at the end of this task? This is very important. Do I expect, a bullet pointed list, or do I expect a report, a formatted report? That's really important, because if we don't state that, I'm going to get a bullet point list of bullet points when I was looking for a full report. But because I didn't communicate that clearly enough, the other person did what they thought was best. So very, very important that the required outcomes are made clear. Are they defined and understood? So that check-in of saying, are we on the same page here? Do we understand what is being asked, what is being put forward here? And then what type of reporting or monitoring needed? It is needed. This is really big for both parties, because if you don't know you're supposed to provide a report, then that person is waiting for it and you're not providing it, and they feel like you're letting them down. You don't even know that you were supposed to have done it. So important. And the monitoring is also very important, because if you have someone who, like me, who does not like to be micromanaged, and this is going to be something where, I'm going to check in every day at 3 about this, then for me, it might not be a good fit for a task. So it's really important that this is understood. When will the reporting happen, and what type of monitoring is expected? So, and by doing that, we can then say, we agree to the commitment. So here are things like what resources will be provided. So that point that somebody made earlier of letting people know, there is a job description. We've got someone who can help you out if you need to, that idea of we're going to support you in doing this. Again, how will the effort be supported? So will you have a mentor? Will you have someone you can call? Will there be resources available from the chorus? Those type of things. And then how will communication go back and forth? So are we going to email? Are we going to call? Are we going to Zoom? Whatever the case may be, how are we going to communicate with each other and make sure that's understood by all parties?
We have a comment in the chat box, Therese.
Yep.
Pam says, I was told one time that when you ask a specific person to help, it's good to nod your head up and down as you're telling them about the job and how perfect that person would be for it. The person is more likely to agree. And then she wrote, it works.
Yes. And I will say, especially with women, because nodding means something different to men than women, but especially for women, there is a positive, it has a positive, real positive communication to the other person. So
I'm sorry, you have to explain that. Nodding is different for men and women?
Nodding for women has to do with understanding. It's an emotional connection. Nodding for men just means I've heard you. It's kind of it's not as much of a connection thing. It's sort of it has less emotional connection in it. It's quite interesting. You could look it up, the science again behind that. And again, these are pretty general comments, and we all have various levels of that, but the idea of even why women nod is different than why men nod. It depicts something different. So
that is very interesting.
Yeah, there are differences in the brains. There are differences in the brains. So
that's your next class, right? Is differences in the brain between men and women?
Classes on brains. We want to talk about brains. I could be here all day. So there was something else you said there, Allison, that I wanted to expand upon. Can you just read that last comment that you made?
Sure. The comment is, I was told one time that when you ask a specific person to help, it's good to nod your head up and down as you're telling them about the job and how perfect that person would be for it. The person is more likely to agree. It works.
Yeah. The other thing about that is in a succession planning. For example, if you're looking for people for your chorus management, when you describe the jobs, that same thing, that very positive, your body language, everything that says this job is fantastic. You're going to love this job. Really portrayed in that way. Not like, I hate to ask you to take this on. You really do want to present it in a way that will be fulfilling for the person. Excellent point. Thank you so much. All right. Any other questions about the steps of delegation? This makes sense to people? Okay, now we're going to talk about the levels of delegation. And this is where we start getting into how do we build those capabilities in person? How do we build the trust? How do we build the confidence and those type of things? So there are 5 levels of delegation in my model. The first one is do exactly as I say. So this is the process is defined, the successful outcome is highly likely, the measure is easy to establish and evaluate. So this one, my classic example is taking attendance, right? We have a process defined. It's very likely that this person is going to be successful at it. So we're looking at here, starting to build confidence, people, doing proven tasks, those type of things. And then the measure is very easy to establish and evaluate because they're either doing it or they're not. So either our attendance is being recorded or it's not. So it's a very easy one to evaluate. So if we think of when the time is right for this type of delegation, it's when you have a task where there's low risk. So it's something that if it doesn't get done, it's not a huge risk to either an individual or to the organization. So really, if attendance doesn't get taken one night, is there a big impact on your chorus? In most cases, no. There could be some choruses where it is, but in most choruses, that example, I would say, is probably pretty low risk for the chorus. And then who are the types of people who you would assign this type of task to? So these would likely be people who have not done a lot of jobs for the chorus. This is a great one for people who join the chorus and want to do something. We used to have, when I first started in Sweet Adelines, there was sort of almost an unspoken rule. And in some choruses, actually, it was a written rule. It was in their rules and bylaws that for the first year, a person was not given a role in the chorus. Their role was to learn the music and come up to speed on the repertoire and those type of things. We have since learned that if somebody wants to be involved walking in the door, we should find a way for them to be involved. It's because we do so much more than the singing. Our culture is so much more than the singing that it's great to get them involved. And something like taking attendance is fantastic because they're also learning the names of the people in the chorus. So something like this is great for someone who's not yet proven, you don't know how reliable they are. It's low risk. It's a great way to build trust. Very easy to provide feedback, very easy to measure that it's being done. So that's level 1. If you want to put any questions in the Q&A, I'll just tell Ellison to, give me the heads up at the end of each slide. And even if you go back to this previous slide, that's fine. We can answer the questions. So that's level 1. Level 2 is do research and get back to me for a decision. So on this one, the focus is on information gathering. The focus is on getting information. It's very important to define the scope of work here, because if all you want is for them to gather those facts, then it's important they understand that so that they don't go on and build a report or make a recommendation and then find out that you're not going to take that recommendation into consideration. That's not what the scope of this task was. So this one it's really important to define the scope of the work. Success is a little harder to measure, but it's still possible to measure it. Do they meet the deadlines? Do they meet commitments? Those type of successes are easy to measure. The quality of the research might be a little bit harder to measure, but again, you're establishing things here that where again there's fairly low risk in this. It's probably something that there's still a high chance of success, and it's the idea that they're starting to take on a little more, but the decision making remains at a higher level. So this is strictly research. Go out and look at get us information about different rehearsal halls, something like that. Just the research, just get us the information. What does it cost? What are the limitations? Those type of things. So the time to use it, again, this is where there's something where you need the information, but the decision is going to be made by a higher in the hierarchies, by the director, by the management team. those type of things. So it's when you need information to make a decision, and it's just the gathering of that information that you need. And then the type of people that you would look to do this, these are people who work great on their own, people who love to go in and dig and read and, search the internet, do all of those things. They like to do legwork. They like to be out investigating, finding information. It's a great fit for people who are skilled at the detail. Okay? So that's the level 2. And again, I just need the information. There's no decision making involved at level 2. Okay.
We have a comment,
Sure.
Therese, in the chat. Tammy says, I so agree with getting people involved. When I joined, my personality is in leadership, and getting involved helped me make my commitment to the chorus versus not being able to get involved. I would have left the chorus because I wasn't invited to be involved, and to me it would feel like I wasn't wanted and my skills aren't needed.
Fantastic. Yeah, and that, as I said, that is what we learned. And, when we look at our guiding principles now, it really builds that culture of belonging, that I belong here, I have value here. So it really feeds that guiding principle of the organization. Oh, sorry about the siren. Oh, they stopped. That doesn't usually happen. All right, let's move on to level 3. Do research and make recommendations. So now we've got people who are not just gathering information, but they're making recommendations. So they're looking at alternatives and pros and cons and presenting those. So they're not just looking at the rehearsal halls, they're looking at all of the different components and saying, this fits what our chorus needs more than this one. So they're putting all those alternatives together. They make recommendations for the decision-making process, but the decision remains with the delegator. So this is where our international task forces sit, is at a level 3, where they go, they do the research, they make recommendations, they present those recommendations to the board with all the supporting data that says, here are the pros and cons, cost benefits, all of those things. And then they make a recommendation that says, the task force recommends option 1. The decision still remains with the board. So this is where that sits for the task forces, as an example of a level 3 at the international level. Now you can see as we go up in these levels how the trust level needs to go up as well. So that idea of the capability, the trust, now you're wanting people who you trust their analysis skills. So you trust that they're going to be able to take the research and put it in a format that now shows you the pros and cons and evaluates and analyzes that. So the time when you need this is, again, when you need to make a decision and you need recommendations, so the analysis, the pros and the cons, rather than just the data. So again, if we look at the international task force model, we don't want our board at its governance level to be sitting and going through all the data, to be analyzing the pros and cons and types of things. We want that to come to the board with the recommendations, and then they can read through those and assess them based on the research that's been done and the way the recommendations have been written up. So if we think about who to do here, as I mentioned, now we're getting a little more into the skill sets. We want people capable of analyzing, excellent communication skills, good written, good verbal communication skills so that they can communicate well. Another really important thing about the person that you put in this role is somebody who can recognize that although they put a recommendation forward, it may not be approved. So it has to be someone who's able to let go of this. So to understand that the ownership remains at the delegator level. So, something like this, you might see something like this in a director selection committee, right? Where they do the analysis, they present it to the chorus, but the chorus is the decision maker. The body is the decision maker, but all of the sort of putting things together and analyzing and interpreting and even evaluating to some degree. So, you would likely have your director on there, your music team would be the ones that would present the options to the chorus. Okay.
And Trace, we had a great question come in on the chat in regards to level 3. Pam is asking, would level 3 of the 5 levels apply to new costume selection?
Absolutely it could, right? Because again, it depends on who that person is. So I'll give you an example. If you look at North Metro again, in my experience, our costume, well, a lot of our leaders actually, and I think it partly has to do with the size of the chorus, have extreme trust in them. So they might not, it might not be a costume recommendation. It might be that type of thing where she goes away and designs it, and the director says, you make the decision. So it absolutely could be level 3, depending on, I think most likely it would be at a level 3 where you would have your costume team, your visual team, again, do the research, make their recommendations, present models, present options, and then have perhaps the 2 leadership teams together, or the director or the manager. If you have a management team, you've got the director there. So then you have a larger body. So that's an excellent example of that could fit really well into a level 3.
And the same person followed up their question. They said, once we had a situation where the committee thought they had total control over the costume as long as they stayed within budget. So interesting.
It's a great example of the expectation there, right? They had an expectation that they had the decision-making authority, when in fact that was not the expectation of the chorus or the management team or whoever was the delegator of that. It's a great example of the expectations not being clear, even the scope of the work not being clear, right? And so, and another really important thing that brings up is that idea that both the delegator and the delegatee, or the person being delegated to, have to understand the level. So if I'm delegating this to you at a level 3, but I don't tell you that, and you think you're at a level 4, then we're going to end up with a disconnect. So in that case, that's exactly what happened, right? They were delegated. The delegators thought it was level 3. The costume people understood it as level 4. Wonderful real life example. Thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about level 4. Make a decision and tell me what you did. So this is what that costume, they thought the authority for decision making had been transferred to that committee or that person, and that they just had to inform the delegator when they were done. So here's our costume. We kept it within budget. That was the expectation. This one requires a high level of trust. So it's possible, again, that if you have that understanding, that is the understanding, that could happen. But it's really important that the understanding is there. I would say a lot of what we do with RMTs in the international organization falls into this level 4. So we trust the running of the regions to the regions, and then we just want to know, in the State of the Region reports, we want to know what the region did so that we can make decisions going forward. But the reality is the regions make the decisions for their members, and we are kept informed. The international organization is kept informed. The board is kept informed. Very high level of trust that's involved there to say, I completely trust that you will do this. Just let me know what you're doing. Very, very high level of trust required there. And typically, this is going to be happening after people have proven themselves. So when you think of the people, and particularly the whole regional management team, typically those people are people who've proven their leadership and skills at the chorus level, and have a high trust invested in them, especially as a team. So that would be a level 4. Lots of trust needed at a level 4. And then the top, so when is this required? When does this make sense? And again, it's where you have proven performers, when you have tasks that require, that are higher risk tasks. And the people, again, proven performers who have proven themselves to be reliable and trustworthy, because these tend to be the higher risk tasks, okay? And the final level is a level 5, where just make whatever decision you think best, Delegator hands it off completely. The delegator supports the decision made, and it's the highest level of trust required. So for me, when I think about Sweet Adelines, I think of the level 5 as being the competition coordinator, the CC. The weekend of competition, that person runs the show. There's no, nothing that international, you know, you do what, you know, you organize it, you put the traffic pattern together. They basically inform the OPL about, or through the OPL inform the judging panel, but in reality, they are making the decisions for the region for that weekend. So that's the level 5 that I can think of in the organization. This is a lot more rare. Again, when do you see it? It's when you have those big important tasks where you need to entrust it to somebody with the knowledge and the abilities, almost where you think, hey, you can do this better than I could do it. You can do, I trust that the outcome is going to be better because you're doing it. And again, very highly skilled people, highly trustworthy people who have proven that they're capable and can perform and will meet the expectations. So now when we look at the 5 levels, sometimes it's the task that drives the level. So for example, you might have somebody fully capable of being a competition coordinator who agrees to do attendance for her chorus. So even though she's capable of doing work at a level 5, she could take on a level 1 task. So sometimes it's the task itself that will drive this. Sometimes it's the person where you look at them and you say, this person, for example, we talked about the choreographers, or sorry, the costume people, where depending on that costume person, depending on the trust that's established, it could be a level 3 or level 4. So that one is more dependent on the actual person. So you don't have to think that, you know, because someone has done things at a level 5, they can't be asked to do something like go and gather the research and bring the research in. As long as they agree to doing that, that works, right? The really important thing, and I thought it was brought home beautifully in that example that was brought, is that both sides understand that level. So we've defined it, we've defined expectations, we've done the 5 steps of delegation, and now we say, our expectations are that this will be done at a delegation level 3. In one of the regions, after I did this presentation, they actually created a form for when they were doing that task, and they actually said, here's what we're agreeing to. So you know, when we're delegating, we expect that you will be, it requires a delegation level 2, and then that person agrees to that delegation level. Or they say, you know, say for example, they said, it's a delegation level 3, we want you to bring us a report with recommendations, and that person might say, you know, I'm not really comfortable making the recommendations, I don't mind gathering the data. So they could do the level 2 and they could hand it to someone else for the level 3. So there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of discussion, but this really helps with that building the trust, you know, helping people be successful in their initial stages, establishing that confidence, building up the capabilities, building your bench strength, as someone mentioned earlier, finding out what people are good at, what they like doing. If you work through these levels of delegation, it can be very helpful in building those capabilities and building people, putting people in a position where they're more likely to be successful. Okay.
Therese, we have a few comments and questions.
Okay, great.
For level 5. Julie had a comment. She says, ideally, I think we would like to see management teams working at a level 5, all supporting each other, making decisions in their own area of responsibility. But the trouble happens when one management team member is less capable or confident in their role.
Right, right. That's a really good point. So the management team itself is a level 5, but you might have people on the management team that are only at a level 3, so they have not built that yet. So when you think about your management team as maybe having those levels of delegation within them, you might be able to manage that way so that as a team, you're doing the level 5, but you might accept that, you know, someone in their first assignment on the team, and maybe you give them roles on the team that are, say, for example, you might start out with somebody who will take the notes for the team. That'll be their role. So you can give them, delegate tasks even within the team to build that capability up, but still have, as a team for the chorus, you're operating at a level 5. So you can work within the team with different levels of delegation to build up that strength, especially because oftentimes we do find, especially in smaller choruses, sometimes it is just about having enough people to do the jobs. So we need to be able to recognize, you know, in order to get the team to be performing at the level we need them, which I would agree is a level 5, we need to be able to build up our people in the chorus through experience, letting them experience. It's a great point.
And then we had Diana had a few questions in the Q&A. She asked, is the difference between level 4 and 5, is it that the person keeps the delegator informed? Is that a difference between level 4 and 5?
It is. So at level 4, let me just go back to that. They are going to make the decision, but they keep them informed. So in other words, this is a decision I've made, and then they let the delegator know what decision they've made. Whereas when they're in the moment making the decision, they just go ahead and make it. So for example, when I talked about the competition coordinator, there's all kinds of decisions she's going to make on that weekend that international is never going to know about. All those little intricate decisions that are made. So in that case, those decisions are not, they're not even going to be on the radar, but there's going to be an implicit support of them. So yes, but that informed is a big part of the difference there, is that the delegator is kept in the loop.
And then Diana, the follow-up question was, so level 5 is level 5 a kind of a just do it level? Like just go ahead and do it?
Yeah, it is. It's take care of it. Just take care of it. And that's, again, it's very high level, a huge level of trust there to say, yep, I don't have to worry about it because you're going to take care of it. If you want to tell me, you can, but you know, I don't really need to know. So yeah, it is really hands off. Thanks for that question. Anything else, Allison?
No, not at the moment. Great questions.
So we're going to do a poll now. I'm going to give you examples of, we just close the poll for a second. I don't know if you're going to be able to reopen it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 examples of a task, and I want you to tell me what level you think it can be assigned at. Now, we could get some different answers here, so I may ask individuals to share why they put it at that level. And it can be correct. So I'm looking for some interesting conversation here. So here's our first task. Pricing a new riser option. So we're going to get new risers, and I want them priced. So what do you think? Is this a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5 delegation?
You want to do the poll now?
Yes, please.
All right.
Sorry. Thank you very much.
All right, there's 11 of you that have no opinion so far.
Okay, so this is interesting. We had a few level 1s, level 2, level 3, where the majority was voting, the 8 and the 9 people. So I'd like someone to share, anybody, any of the levels, just share on why you chose that level. And let's do this with the hands up if we could. And then so if you would put your hand up to share whatever level. It doesn't matter which level you chose. I'd just like to know why you chose that level. So Joanne, tell me which level you chose and why you chose it.
Well, I chose level 3. I
Okay.
wasn't sure from the item, the task that was presented, whether that included a recommendation or not.
Right.
I assumed that it did.
Right. So what I would say is, if I had this in front of me and I had someone capable of putting a recommendation together, then I would absolutely go to level 3, right?
Yeah.
If I didn't, if it was someone that I, just said to me, or they hadn't had a lot of experience yet, I might just say, just go find the prices and then the management team will look at it. So for me, again, this one, there's a lot of dependence on who I'm delegating to. Thanks for sharing that, Joanne. It was a great point that, depending on whether or not I want recommendations, I would move it from one level to the next. Anybody else?
I thought we had another hand.
We had, yeah,
we
we had another hand, and it
Yeah,
was from
right.
somebody who's running an older version of Zoom, who needs to update their Zoom, and it went away. We were, in order for someone who has an older version of Zoom, we have to promote them to a panelist.
Oh,
So let's-
Can you, if anybody, oh, there we go, Bonnie's got.
Bonnie
Bonnie, go
raised her
ahead.
hand.
And if the person who had their hand up and wasn't able, if you could put that in the Q&A, Allison will pick it up for you.
Yes.
So Bonnie, go ahead.
Bonnie, you need to unmute.
Doesn't look like that's working for Bonnie. Okay.
We have there was a question put in the chat box, Therese,
Yep.
Just kind of asking about level 5.
Sure.
Tammy was asking, once you delegate at a level 5, does that mean we shouldn't follow up and check in to see what they are doing and if they need assistance?
That's a great question. So I would say if you're delegating at a level 5, that would be part of the expectations you would talk about. So you could say, hey, do you want us to check in, or make it clear to that person, look, just because you're at a level 5 doesn't mean you can't ask for assistance. So it's a great point about, again, expectations around that. You might be saying, hey, we trust you to do this completely, but let us know if you need help or run into issues or those type of things. So it's a very good point about a level 5. We're trusting you to make the decisions, but we're not leaving you out there on your own. So really important about those steps being coordinated with the levels. So we still want to set expectations. We still want to agree to those, commit to agreements. So yes, absolutely. So just because you're at a level 5 does not mean that there's no communication back and forth. Excellent question. Thanks.
And then Tammy, the same person wrote in the Q&A, for this particular poll question, she said, I chose level 2 because I'm really just asking for prices, not recommendations.
Right, right. And that, in fact, is that level 2. So again, it would be important for that person to know, we just want the data. Don't go to the effort of doing that reporting, because that's where that frustration can kick in, where I put all these recommendations together and they didn't even look at them. Well, that's not what the task was. So that makes perfect sense. All I want are the prices. That is absolutely a level 2. Great. Okay, let's move on to the next poll, which is creating an advertisement for a new director. So we need a new director, and we need someone to create an advertisement for that new director. So let's put, yeah, there's the poll. Which level would you put this task at, and why? Think about why.
We have an interesting spread of answers here.
We do, we do. So let's ask somebody to tell us what level they chose and why. So hands up again. Oh, we're not done. Sorry, the poll's not over yet. I think we can go ahead and end the poll, just in the interest of time again. Hey, Joanne. Are you there?
There we go.
Excellent.
Okay. I thought it was more than a level 2 because you're not just asking for research. The very act of creating something, I think, is a recommendation.
I would agree.
And so, but you're also not asking this person to go ahead and post an advertisement for a new director. You're
Right.
just asking them to create something to be used. So I went with level 3.
That's an excellent rationale between level 3. Did anybody go with a different level than level 3? Okay, Diana. Oh, you there, Diana?
Yes, I
Okay.
went with level 4 because I was assuming that if we were to choose a person to do that, that we would know that that person had some advertising skills, that that person would know and understand the chorus needs and the culture. That person isn't doing the job. They're just, well, they're actually doing the job, but that would be given to us to review
Mm-hmm.
and accept. That's what I thought level 4.
And again, I think it is a great example of depending on the person, right? Depending on, as you say, that person, do they have that strong knowledge of the chorus culture? Do they, or do they need input? So again, that idea of we want you to create it and then we'll review it to make sure it's accurate, or you go ahead and create it and then get it out there. So it really is looking at that person and saying, this person is, we believe this person is capable of doing this task at a level 4. Another great example of the same task, but depending on who you have assigned to it, or what your structure is, you would choose it at a level 3 or a level 4. And again, really important though that both parties understand what level that's at. So if you as the delegator are thinking level 3 and that person is thinking level 4, they could go ahead and post something without it being reviewed, or vice versa. You're waiting for it to be posted and they're sitting there thinking that someone's going to have to approve it. So both ways, it's just so important that both parties understand that. Okay, let's move on to the next poll, which is planning a chorus guest night. So let's put the poll up and tell me what you think. Okay, let's end this poll. So we had nobody thinking a level 1 and nobody thinking a level 2. I would agree on that. Can anyone share with me the level that they chose and why they chose it? So let's do a hands up on this one. I'm trying that practice of just standing here and waiting for somebody to, okay, go ahead, Bonnie. You there, Bonnie? Oh, you went away.
Bonnie, I just set your status to panelist so you can talk. Go ahead, Bonnie. She's unmuted, but she's not talking.
Okay, maybe she.
Go ahead, Bonnie, unmute.
Well, we had a comment come through
Okay,
in
great.
the chat that I could share in the meantime. Pam says she says a level 3 because it's really a team decision involving the music, membership, PR.
Mhm.
So she said a level 3.
Sure, yeah. A lot of decisions to be made around that guest night for sure. You definitely want input from others. Diana, did you have? Oh, she's muted.
I think Diana did raise her hand.
Yeah, she needs to unmute.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
I just decided to speak to it because no one is
Be at work.
raising their hand. But that's the only reason why I chose. However, level 4, I would want the person to let the chorus know about it for the purpose of, I believe it would increase a buy-in and support from the chorus members.
Mhm.
And you never know if there's someone who may come up with some unique idea just to add to the plan.
Right, absolutely. And again, you know, if you think of a level 3 and a level 4, it could be that the person comes back and informs, and then things get assigned based on that person. If you've got someone, you know, I think of some membership coordinators that I know that I would probably say to them, plan the night and then let us know what you need us to do. Because just because they're so good at it and have done it before and that type of thing, and that they are natural collaborate, you know, they look for that as part of what they do. So again, there's some, who is that person, right? Who is that person we're delegating to becomes such an important question. And then your own chorus procedures and processes as well. You might have a process that says this type of job is a level 3. So lots of different factors there. Joanne, did you have something to share?
Yeah, I think this is a high level of responsibility, and I think whoever does it is probably going to seek input, may put together a committee, but you haven't assigned it to a committee. You've assigned it to an individual who's going to be responsible for that product and bringing it to you.
That's right. Yeah, that's correct. So again, depending on the person, your chorus, you know, if you had somebody that you were doing a level 3, it might be someone who's doing it for the first time, and part of the support you give them is the person who's been doing it for years. So there's all those factors that go into it. And then the level 5, I find the level 5 interesting in terms of, I guess it's the same type of thing. If you have that trust in that person that they're going to engage all the people that they need to engage, then you might say, you know, go and do it. And again, you're trusting them to get the right people engaged. So you're not going to be making any decisions. You're not going to be reviewing decisions. You're just going to have them keep you informed of what's going to be happening that night. So I could see that at a level 5. And again, somebody with extremely high trust, extremely well-proven track record that you would do that with. This has been a great discussion, and we've again gone a little bit over, which is pretty par for the course for me. So again, this has been great discussion. Just a quick check-in with people. Is this delegation model turning any lights on for you? Is it something that you can see helping with that whole idea of managing expectations, on both sides, putting people in positions where they can be successful, building that capability within the chorus, if it's something that is of value to you.
Can I share, Therese, one last comment that someone had put in the Q&A for your previous question on the guest night?
Yep.
Tammy says she chose level 4 because she has delegated the plan for the guest night, but there needs to be input from others and decisions made by others.
Right.
So that's why she chose level 4.
Excellent, excellent. Very good. All right, and then just as a wrap up, one more time, are there any questions? General questions about anything in the presentation? Anything anyone wants to share? And then just one more time, my gratitude. This is my final class. This has been such an excellent opportunity. I will be bragging on Region 12 to many, many people. Wonderful experience. I would recommend to any faculty that it's a very rewarding experience to teach in Region 12. So thank you so much. Technical people, you've been brilliant. Once I discovered that poll thing, they just let me run with it, play with it. So I appreciate everyone who has attended, everyone who's helped out in any way. And I hope to work with Region 12 again in the future. So that's it for me.
It was fantastic for us.
Yes, thank you so much, Therese. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you here with us in Region 12, and we would love, 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 love to have you back. And it would be wonderful if we could do it in person.
Well, let's put that in our abundance thinking, that there is going to be a time where we are together in person, and it's going to be great. And remember, I give prizes, so
yeah,
we'll have lots of if we can get together. And if in the meantime we have to do it virtually again, it's been a great experience. So thanks so much to everybody who my panel members here who've done all this wonderful technical work for me, made it very easy. And of course, to everybody who has attended and participated so beautifully. So thanks to everyone.
Yes, I agree. I need to say thank you one more time to Therese Antonini. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to the wonderful tech team we have here in Region 12, Randy Sahai, Kevin Day, Pete Cheney. We would absolutely not be able to do any of what we do without the three of you ladies. So thank you so much. And thank you to all of the attendees. Thank you to you, Region 12. You are wonderful for being with us today. We do have 2 more classes this afternoon. At 1 o'clock we have our class with Kathy Scheel on ways to support your director right now during times of Zoom and quarantine and not being able to be together live in person. So please join us at 1 o'clock for Kathy's class. And then we have Dee Dee Nibbler's class at 2:30 today from 2:30 to 3:30. And that is called Smooth Singing, how to use your articulators to achieve legato singing. So we have 2 more fantastic classes. So we will see you soon at 1 o'clock. Have a great lunch. And thank you again to Therese. Thank you, Region 12. See you in a little bit.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.